It's one thing to learn about American history in the classroom. It's quite another to absorb these lessons up close and personal with one of the 21st century's chief architects of American foreign policy. The Cobb Leadership Lecture Series was established by Ambassador Sue Cobb to commemorate her husband Chuck Cobb's 50th birthday. Mike had a birthday present. Please join me in recognizing Sue and Chuck for 25 years of providing the University of Miami community with the opportunity to host insightful and provocative leaders from all walks of life. I also want the students to thank them for very generously donating 300 of Secretary Rice's very big book, which were given to the first 300 students who attended this year's event. Now, the university takes no credit for doing this. I want to thank our very good friend Mitch Kaplan of Books and Books. The university met with him recently to discuss launching a new partnership to bring speakers to campus, and 1 week later he called to say that we were going to have an opportunity to host Secretary Rice's first public book tour event. Mitch, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful relationship. Thank you very much. Now, the Cobbs have sponsored other distinguished speakers, Caspar Weinberger, Bob Galvin, EDS founder Ross Perot, NBA Commissioner David Stern, David Gergen. Sue and Chuck have dedicated their careers and their energies to serving their country and their community in a variety of ways. Between them, they are a formidable diplomatic corps that spans from Iceland to Jamaica to D.C. to Tallahassee and Miami. Sue served as U.S. Ambassador to Jamaica from 2001 to 2005, during the same time when Secretary Rice served as National Security Advisor and U.S. Secretary of State. Governor Jeb Bush appointed her Secretary of State of Florida from 2005 to 2007. She's taught at the Foreign Service Institute and co-chairs the U.S. Department of State's mandatory seminars for newly appointed ambassadors. And an interesting twist, she's both an alumna of Stanford University, where Secretary Rice is a very distinguished member of the faculty and former provost, and the University of Miami School of Law. Chuck Cobb was the U.S. Ambassador to the Republic of Iceland during the administration of George H.W. Bush, and during the Reagan administration, he served as Undersecretary and Assistant Secretary at the U.S. Department of Commerce, where he was responsible for trade, development, export promotion, and international travel and tourism. And he was appointed by Florida's governors, Jeb Bush and Charlie Crist, to serve on statewide boards. Both Sue and Chuck serve on the board of directors of the Council of American Ambassadors. Chuck is a double graduate of Stanford. While we can't claim him as an alumnus, he's a longtime member and past chairman of the board of the University of Miami's Board of Trustees. Please welcome Miami's diplomatic dynamic duo, the Ambassadors Cobb.
Thank you, President Shalala. Dr. Rice, Ambassador Cobb, guests. We're really pleased to have all of you here. This whole thing sort of unfolded around the interest of my husband in leadership. So when we have been able to have outstanding leaders come through this area, we've arranged to have the University of Miami students and our guests participate. And that's been an extraordinary pleasure. Now this year, we've hit the jackpot with Condoleezza Rice. We do have a relationship that goes back. As you know, I think Dr. Rice was the provost at Stanford and is back at Stanford now at the Woodrow Wilson Institute. Chuck and I spent 8 years on campus at Stanford. It was not because we couldn't graduate, but that's a different story. And we have many mutual friends from our service in government and Stanford and elsewhere. And of course, we also had the privilege of service to our country at very consequential times. One of the things that I enjoy thinking about is leadership also, and I think of Dr. Rice as a transformational leader. In fact, I think of President Shalala and Ambassador Cobb as transformational leaders. And you might think about and ask, what are the common traits? Vision, contextual knowledge, understanding the environment in which you're operating, communication and motivational skills. They're challenging but empowering, rock-solid integrity, unusual determination, and perseverance, and perseverance. Well, as you might guess, I'm a great admirer of Dr. Rice. Not quite as much as Muammar Gaddafi. I don't have a scrapbook. But I do have an enormous regard for Dr. Rice, and I'm very, very pleased that she's here. And to do her formal introduction, I'd like to invite Ambassador Cobb to the stage.
Good morning, everybody. And thank you, President Shalala and my wife, for those nice comments. And before I introduce Condoleezza Rice, I want to share with all of you a favoritism I have, a bias that I have. And this bias is that I have a strong affinity for smart, strong, powerful, successful, and charismatic women leaders. And as evidence of that, I've been married to one of those ladies for 52 years. But as second evidence of that, I had the pleasure to chair the search committee for the University of Miami president. And our first choice, by far, was Donna Shalala, because she had all of those skills and all of those talents. And then thirdly, I'm on the board of the Woodrow Wilson Center, and I had the honor to chair its search committee recently. And our first choice was Condoleezza Rice, who clearly has all those skills, as I'll talk a little more about in a moment. Unfortunately, we couldn't get her away from Stanford, and we couldn't get her away from writing this great book. And so we were successful in encouraging Congresswoman Jane Harman, who is a congresswoman from California, and also a very charismatic, driven, powerful, wonderful, smart lady. So it's quite obvious, I think, from all of this that I really do have this bias. And for that reason, it's really an opportunity and a pleasure for me to introduce the most successful woman in the world. And I really do believe that. So you've heard from my wife about leadership skills. And clearly, Condoleezza Rice has all of those. But in my opinion, the most important leadership skill she has is, and I think all successful leaders have this, is the ability to bring people together, to team build, to seek a common ground. And no one is more skilled at this than Condoleezza Rice. As National Security Advisor, as you all know, it's her job to bring really diverse personalities together. And so in her case, it was Dick Cheney, the Vice President, Colin Powell, the Secretary of State, and Don Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense. Really different personalities, really strong personalities, a lot of tension in the room, as you will read in this book, but she brought a consensus, and under her leadership and the President's leadership, they made some of the most important decisions of this century.